Welcome back, everybody. 2018 has really been kind of a rough start for a lot of people. A flu broke out, which got everybody sick, and, well, sadly, even I was not excluded from all the fun. I was sick like a dog for the first few weeks of the new year, and it came back again in the span of a few weeks later, which had me even on more downtime. I swear, for the majority of the year thus far, I was pretty much like...
It's not looking good. Guess we're gonna have to get ready for the operation. And a little time extra to take out the trash. And done with this piece of filth.
I got better. Anyway, where was I? Oh, of course. The Nights into Dream series.
Now, the last time I left you off, I went over how Sega had begun marketing their new mascot character in a Christmas sales pitch, and how even a glorified demo could be something special if it was done right. And that's really what Christmas Nights was, a cleverly themed demo to further introduce a new concept in gaming, which, if you can believe at the time, wasn't drastically explored on this kind of level. The concept, of course, being flight. Journeying back to 1992, while Sonic the Hedgehog 2 was still being developed, Sega game veterans Yuji Naka, Naoto Oshima, and Takashi Iizuka, you'll have to excuse me if I botch these names, I'm sorry. These three guys would come together and begin planning on a new video game project that would revolutionize video games in an artistic sense. Since the year was still 1992, it probably wasn't all that hard to accomplish, since, 3D games still looked like this. And the notion of even exploring something even grander, to most people, just kind of wasn't a thought at the time. Sonic Team wanted their new game to focus on the concept of flying.
Now, it's not like flying games haven't been done before. I mean, we've had the age-old space shooters and arcade flying simulators of sorts, but this one in particular really sought to encourage freedom, to fly around on more than just your average 2D plane.
And because of this, they spent a few years developing and coming up with ways to make this a unique experience. That probably wasn't just a recreation of something like Afterburner. Interestingly, technology was starting to get better, and newer generation consoles like the Sega Saturn were beginning to rise and show that 3D gaming was not only possible, but definitely the future. Yuji Naka himself led the project for the Nights game, and Naoto Oshima would work on developing the character that the player would take control of. In time, they also researched the works of psychoanalysts like Sigmund Freud to expand upon the lore of the world that they were building. There was a bit of a strong focus on dreams and the amazing worlds that our subconscious minds make while resting that apparently fascinated our developers. And with that, they had enough to go on. Well, almost. In order for our new Knights character to fly with such amazing grace that really captivates the players, the standard controllers we had all been used to with, the simple D-pad, was in a way becoming inefficient. Even other companies like Sony, who became a new competitor at this time, and the ever-famed Nintendo saw that analog control was the better way to go for 3D games. Knights was no exception. In fact, most copies of Knights, when it was finally released, was shipped like a collector's edition box with the analog controller bundled with it. Now hear me out. While it was certainly possible to play the game without this analog controller, I cannot stress enough how much of a pain in the ass it is. Knights' movement with the D-pad is so slow and stiff, I always felt like I was gonna break my damn controller. I was pressing so hard on it just to make him move, let alone move fast. I'm just gonna come out and say it, guys. If you have any interest at all in playing this game on the original Sega Saturn hardware, do yourself a big favor and go the extra mile and get the analog controller. Yes, they are a little pricey, but holy Christ, does it make a world of difference. Speaking of which, the controller itself is a kind of a weird experiment. It really mystified me when I first got it. I honestly thought it was broken for a while when I tried to play anything because weird crap would just happen. Turns out that messing with this bottom switch here was the problem. The circle is for the analog mode and the other side is for D-pad mode. If you got the controller set to D-pad and you're trying to use the analog stick, either nothing is going to happen on screen or little jerks and weird oddities are going to start happening. This also happens vice versa, so make sure that whatever time you're going to play something, make sure that you have the controller set to the right mode. Save yourself some grief and embarrassment. About 10 years later down the line, Nights into Dreams would get an exclusive remake in Japan for the PlayStation 2. From the ground up, this version was just a complete cosmetic revamp that made the original just look much better. However, it's still very much the same exact game, and it even includes the original in it, along with the Christmas stages from the demo. Wow, way to go above and beyond. It's a damn shame we didn't get this when it was originally released. Luckily enough, eventually it would also get a localized Steam release, but for this review, I'm going to primarily be using both the Saturn and PlayStation 2 versions.
So now that we know all about the history of Nights into Dreams, let's see what the story is about.
Well, if there is one thing I can certainly say the storytellers took to the extreme in this tale, was the classic 101 rule, show, don't tell. My god, there is not a hint of spoken dialogue in this entire game. No subtext, no word boxes, zippa nada, nothing. All of the cutscenes from the moment you start the game to the end of it are just what you as a viewer interpret as you watch the events unfold before your eyes. This is by no means a bad thing, and the scenes are really simple to understand and break down on their own. However, if you really want to appreciate and understand the deeper lore and narrative of the game and learn further about the world in addition to the characters, including the subconscious creatures they meet, sadly, the game on its own does little to answer that directly, and instead chooses to focus on the conflict and resolutions of our lead protagonists. Enter Elliot and Clarice, two teenagers who live in the vastly populated city of Twin Seeds. Yeah, I think I'll focus on Elliot first. Elliot and his, school buddies? I don't know. They're all wearing the same outfits. I'm just gonna assume it's a dress code. Apparently these boys like to get together often and play basketball in the park. With this, it's kinda easily assumed that our boy Elliot takes the game very seriously and aspires to be a sports star. Alright, that's cool. However, while in the midst of practicing, Elliot is quickly surprised by the sudden appearance of what looks like, senior year students. Yeah, that sounds about right. These jackasses immediately take control of the court, slapping the ball away from our lead and pulling off stunts and greatly discouraging and intimidating Elliot, backing him into a psychological corner. The bullies laugh and wander off, but the damage has been done, leaving Elliot feeling defeated. What a loser, wanting to play basketball, fag. Meanwhile, moving on to Clarice's side of the story, this young teenager, from the looks of things, aspires to be a singer and or possibly an actress, and there happens to be an open audition for the lead singing role at the Twin Seeds Tower. Unfortunately, Clarice is stricken with anxiety and the fear of failure, which has her questioning if she should even try. That night, both of the kids go to bed contemplating giving up on their dreams, and are instead reliving the events in their nightmares. On a strange note, these nightmares seem to be more harmful than your average kind. Whilst being chased, our heroes-ish run away where light shines as if to show them the way. Now, it's here where the gameplay begins. The character that you've selected is dropped into their own dream world stage where they unite and become one with the dream character named Nights, and begin flying through the realm of Nightopia, defending it from the creatures called Nightmarans, all while flying through rings in a timed obstacle course, Superman 64 style, but better, trust me. At the end of each stage, a boss Nightmaran shows itself, and after figuring out how to defeat it, it's rinse and repeat a few times more until you reach the final stage where Nights is captured, and you are forced to fly alone and rescue him. Believe it or not, this is probably one of the neater moments in the game. The Nights theme music is playing in the background as Elliot and Clarice gain the courage to fly alone through the final stage. Towards the end, our duo helps rescue Nights and they gear up for the final battle. Both of the kids unite with Nights at once, creating two separate beings, and the duel with the big bad Nightmaran, Wiseman, commences. Upon defeating him, the nightmares finally come to an end, and Nightopia is shown to be a serene dream world once again. Clarice apparently is exhausted from the battle and is lying unconscious, which is... Hold on a minute. Wait, doesn't that technically mean she's in a coma? I doubt it's going to be that serious. I mean, we need a happy ending, damn it, and we're going to get one. Apparently, Elliot's alarm clock starts going off as he's drifting in and out of the sleep world, leaving Clarice to enjoy the dream a little bit longer. In her ending, the scene plays out just a little longer, showing her courage to sing in front of an audience. Now that both of them have found new reignited courage within themselves, Elliot goes back to the basketball court to beat the shit out of the seniors who gave him Nah, I'm fooling. Instead, he shows off that he has skill just to be as good and capable as they are, and in the end, he earns their respect and even admiration. Claris does exactly what you expect her to do, and goes back to the audition to try out one more time, and by gathering the courage within herself, sings amazingly and earns cheers from all. In the complete ending, the city of Twin Seeds has a parade which takes place after each character's ending. Elliot high-fives his buds and goes on his separate way, until he, almost guided by fate, walks in front of the audition poster that reminds him of Knights and his dream friend Claris, leading him to believe that there's possibly a shot that he may be able to meet her in real life. And they happen to live in the same exact city, what a coincidence! Visiting the auditorium, the curtains rise and Claris sings her heart out. The two teenagers look upon each other and are happily reunited. And that's it. The credits roll, Knights gives the player a send-off, and then we are left with probably the worst child singers I've ever heard in my life. Christ. You know, at face value, that's really all the game gives you. It's just a simple story about two kids who at first are faced with everyday fears that we as people do show when it comes to peer pressure, intimidation, and doubts about dreams that we may have wanted to pursue. But through perseverance, courage, believing in yourself, and just straight up when you put your mind to it, there's nothing you can't do.
I can totally get behind the simplicity in this kind of storytelling because, you know what? Sometimes we do need to be reminded of the little things. Those little encouragements.
However, in my summary of said story, you might have noticed that the character of Knights has very little to do with the tale at large. And you know what? You are not wrong. If you were to just play the game by itself, there is a lot of shit that probably would not add up. The cinematic scenes explain themselves fine enough, and the kids are easily understood as well as their motives, but in-game, when you are actually playing, there is a ton of unanswered questions. Just who the hell is Knights? What is our connection to him? Why is it as soon as Elliot and Claris begin dreaming, they are ambushed and these little balls of light are taken away from them? What is Nightopia? What are Nightmarans? What are these bosses, and why am I fighting them to the death after I finish flying through an obstacle course of rings in my dream?
Ah, well, you see, now that's where these babies came in. You see, kids, long ago in the early days of games, video games came with what we call manuals. Now, on top of serving as nice cover art for the game that you bought, when you opened it up, oh, suddenly you were in a different world. It would teach you things. It would show you how to play the game. It had a notes section in the back so you could write down and take notes of what you found in the game. It had the credits. It had synopsises, game screens, and, dare I say it, it even explained the story.
So yes, by and large, manuals were scapegoats for developers who had little time to add a complete narrative to the game, but still felt like an explanation was needed to help the player engage in what they were playing and to get them invested. So let's find out just how much lore there is in here, or at the very least, see if we can find any answers. Well, let's see. This looks like a good place to start. In their dreams, Elliot and Claris have seen Knights, a being capable of flying freely through the sky and performing the trickiest of aerial acrobatics. But what is Knights? I don't know, you tell me, game. A spirit? A memory? Whatever he, she, or it is, Knights plays an important part in the upcoming battle with the evil Wiseman. In the world of Nightopia, where our dreams are played out, an evil being is gaining tremendous power. He is Wiseman the Wicked, and through his creations, the Nightmarans, he captures precious dream energy from humans. If he is not stopped, he will rise from the subconscious and enter into our world. No power on Earth will be able to stop him. As Wiseman's Nightmarans start fulfilling this horrible plan, a Nightopian escapes from the dream world and begs the sleeping Elliot and Claris to save the world from the evil being. Just a few moments ago, they felt like total failures, but now that the world needs their help, Elliot and Claris feel for the first time in their lives a courage growing within them. They accept the Nightopian's desperate request. The creature then explains to them that they need to recover 4 types of dream energy from Wiseman's Idea capture, a group of large machine-like beings. The 4 energies are white, representing purity, green for wisdom, yellow, hope, and blue for intelligence. Wise men will attempt to steal Elliot and Claris's dream energy and try to confuse them by placing them in strange dream worlds. These worlds are places developed from the depths of their minds. The fifth and rarest of the dream energies, bravery, red in color, is the only type of energy that Wiseman and his henchmen cannot steal. It is said that the only one not yet under Wiseman's power is Knights, who appears as an aerial acrobat and is attracted to red dream energy. The Knightopian believes that Elliot and Claris possess this rare energy, and thus Knights will come to their aid. The Knightopian warns that sooner or later Wiseman will send the most powerful of his Nightmarans, or his henchmen, after Claris and Elliot. The two children will need the help of Knights every step of the way to thwart Wiseman's plans if they are to restore peace to Knightopia.
Well, it certainly looks like they put a lot of thought into it.
For as interesting as it sounds in writing, and as much as I really do appreciate the simple story we do get to see, it really just kind of feels like all of this extra information was just tacked on as an afterthought, just to give the player some sense of understanding while playing through what otherwise, let's just be honest, is a complete nonsensical mind trip with some creative imagery. Knights the character is an androgynous being that never says a word but is just written to like being around people with a strong sense of bravery and allowing them to become one with itself in order to battle evil. Being the title character, I do wish that we had more to go on though. In the opening cutscene, he is shown to potentially have a personality, but outside of what I just read to you, there's unfortunately just not much else going on, and I just find it kind of very strange. I don't want to say it's bad because I'm really just not sure how much of this was intentional, because even though we know their original concept was to make a game that focused on flying, clearly it shows that they were trying to be artsy and trying something new and fresh. Whether it pays off really is truly in the eye of the beholder. I can totally understand a lot of people really not getting into the story like this and just seeing it as a lazy effort on Sonic Team's part, not giving a damn and just throwing some words on a page and saying, hey, here's some lore, have at it. Others may see it for what it truly could be, a unique artistic attempt at telling a story through the combination of reading material and what you can see happening while using your imagination to fill in the blanks as you play the game. What you see is quite literally all you get.
And you know what? I think now would be a perfect time to segue into the gameplay, so let's get started.
Probably would be a good idea, as it is the major spotlight of the game. Now, if you saw my first video about Christmas nights, you should have an idea of how this works. When starting the game, you get to select which levels you want to play, Elliot or Claris. Now, both characters get 4 stages each, with the 4th one being the same one no matter who you pick. Each stage starts off the same and subsequently gets harder along the way. The moment you take control of your character, Nightmarans ambush you and take away your Idea orbs, placing them in capture devices along an obstacle course. Knights is always floating nearby, stationed, awaiting for the player to touch him and begin flying your way through the level. You don't have to touch him right away, as you can, as the boy or girl, run around the dream and find some hidden points scattered throughout. Beyond that, unfortunately, there's really not a whole lot to do or see on the ground level, and too much dicking around actually can result in you getting captured, which results in an instant game over. So, bottom line, if you must for some reason explore the world around you, that's fine, but be sure to get back to Knights ASAP. As soon as you touch our flying friend, the game really begins, and you're off. Now, while you are technically flying in a 3D game, you are still very much on a 2D plane. Knights can fly in any direction, but you are traveling along a looping obstacle course, traveling right to advance. It's a wide course though, so by flying forward either high or low can reveal some different paths that may be more quick and beneficial. From the moment you begin flying as Knights, you, the player, are put on a timer. Within that time limit, your goal is to loop through the obstacle as many times as you can, while collecting as much points as you can by acquiring these blue chips, and also paralooping Nightmarans as well as performing acrobatic tricks. And most of all, linking combo chains by doing all of this as fast as you can while flying through the rings. After collecting 20 blue chips, you will be able to finally break one of the floating prisons stationed on your current obstacle course. It's very essential that you destroy it and reclaim the stolen Idea before you complete the track. Actually, you can't complete it without doing this, so really, this should be priority 1 before you try to be fancy with the whole collecting of points for your score. Sometimes it's not always obvious what the best route to take is during flight. This is where trial and error and replaying comes into play. Sometimes you can find cages that house a lot of blue chips just waiting to be collected, and sometimes you might find that you're doing pretty well keeping in rhythm with the course and the loops. Other times while flying, it can actually be pretty frustrating trying to figure out what the best direction to take is, and there always is one. Harder stages can put plenty of hazards and roadblocks in your way, forcing you to readjust and get familiar with the landscape. And as adrenaline rushing as it is to be doing well, nothing will put you in a worse mood to be attacked or hit by something you didn't see coming, or to find that you're not flying in the best direction the game probably wants you to. I'd say that taking your time would be the best option, but that's really not an option. Some courses can go on for a lengthy degree, and with your time limit sometimes being super strict, even more so when you take damage, eating literal seconds off of it, you sometimes barely have enough time to collect the blue chips, get your idea back, and pull off some nice stunts with whatever time you have left while trying to make it back to the checkpoint to begin the next course on the stage you're on. It's like, geez, couldn't you guys give us a little mercy and give us a way to extend the timer so we have enough time to get back to the checkpoint? Ugh, anyway, moving on. There are 4 courses in a stage. Each one takes you on a different route on the level, and each time your goal is the same. Fly through rings, collect blue chips, fly through more rings, get your idiot back, fly through even more rings, explore the stage to find hidden points or cages, try to fly through more rings, keeping your combo chain to get the high score, and do it all fast as shit. If you fail to make it back to the checkpoint on time, your selected character will defuse with knights, falling back down to the ground and losing pretty much all the points you've acquired. And I am not gonna lie, guys, sometimes the challenge made me want to snap my freaking controller in two. But in a weird sensation, it's that kind of challenge that kind of makes you want to keep on trying and get better. Knights himself is not totally defenseless in all this. He does have a couple of tricks to help him out. First off is the paraloop. When flying in a complete oval or circle, as long as the sparkles behind him collide and cross the streams, whatever is in between when it happens is gone. Doing the paraloop works great, also for collecting chips, rings, and even bonuses without having to touch them directly. Additionally, by holding down one of the face buttons, Knights will get a burst of speed and maintain it as long as his energy meter is full. Running out shouldn't be an issue, as by collecting points on flying through rings, it slowly refills itself. Tapping the shoulder buttons will have Knights perform one of his acrobatics. These are good for style points, but I also find that they are good to use when trying to make quick turns. Now, occasionally one of the rings will trigger a ribbon effect, where you can double, triple, or even quadruple any points that you earn within the ribbon's launch by pulling off acrobatic stunts and collecting rings at the same time. Now hold on a second, guys. By this point, I'm pretty sure you're all probably asking me, why is there so much emphasis on score and points? Well, the answer simply is that points are everything in this game. The whole game is virtually a big score attack. Whenever you complete a track by touching the checkpoint, all that you did while on that course is added up, and you are then given a rank based on your performance. E being the absolute worst, and A being the absolute best. After clearing all of the courses, your tally is added up, giving you the final rank, and then it's off to the nightmare boss of the stage. Fighting the boss of the stage is a different can of worms because now the focus is on trying to figure out how to defeat it within the time limit. There are 9 bosses total, with the leader, Wiseman, being exclusive to the final stage. The others are Gilwing, Claus, Gulpo, Puffy, and the fan favorite for some reason, the Jackal, and Riala, who looks and fights a lot like Knights, but that's all the connection there is to know. Each boss has a certain trick to fighting them, and once you know how to do it, you can pretty much pull it off every time, but you still want to be fast because, believe it or not, even though you may have already gotten a good grade before you got to the boss, these fights can either literally make or break that score into something better or worse. I'm not quite sure how it works, but for the love of all that is holy God, screwing up here is the last thing you want to do. Some fights are easier than others. Riala is pretty simple, you just have to do the paraloop on him 3 times. Gilwing is simple enough, just knock his head back enough times until you reach the end of his tail. Or if you want to be exceptionally tricky and prove how much of an expert at this game you are, you can try to insta-kill him by paralooping the end of his tail. A very tricky and very difficult maneuver, definitely. But oh man, if you manage to actually pull this off, it's one of the most satisfying boss defeats ever. Puffy and Gulpo aren't too bad, but the Jackal and Claus always seem to give me trouble. Sometimes I can defeat them as quick as the others, but other times it gets down to the freaking wire and I don't really know what to do with these guys. Sometimes I think it's just luck-based. I would definitely want to look up a guide if I were you on fighting these guys if you come across them. Anyway, after finishing up all of the bosses, your final rank for the whole stage is given. Now, here is why the points mattered so much. In order to progress to the final stage and get the complete ending, or any ending, all of the stages need to have a rank of at least C or higher. Now you're probably thinking, C is not too bad, I mean, it can't be too hard to get it right. And, well, that's sort of true. The bare minimum of C is not too hard to get, but trust me, if you don't know what you are doing, a C rank may be just possible to get. If you think getting back your idea and completing each course quickly is just enough to get a good rank, I am sorry, my friends. Sonic Adventure, this is not. A good rank in Nights into Dreams is not determined by how fast you complete a course, but instead by how much you accomplish within the entirety of the time limit for each course given. So, purposefully, you will be looping through the track, performing as many acrobatics and flying through rings, trying to fill up those points quickly while keeping an eye on that clock, trying to make it back to the checkpoint with just seconds to spare, and then rinse and repeat and pray to God the boss doesn't screw you over. And sometimes the stages have unique gimmicks that can eat up even more of your time if you're not paying attention. The final stage is probably the easiest. Hey, I'm not gonna look a gift horse in the mouth. Just saying thank you, really. This time, you play without Knights, as he's been captured by Wiseman. The final stage is pretty straightforward, no gimmicks or tricks, just kind of a smooth trip. After both of you come together and set Knights free, the final battle with Wiseman begins. He looks intimidating at first, but believe me, he's probably the easiest fight in the game. Tag him 4 times and he's done. Congratulations, you've completed the game.
Wow. That actually took a lot longer than I thought it was going to take. Well, let's wrap this adventure up. What are my final thoughts on Nights into Dreams?
Nights into Dreams is a well-known classic for a reason. Its artistry and uniqueness for its time really captivated a lot of Sega loyalists and even caught the attention of gamers on different platforms. The story may not have been something special, but in terms of imagination and creativity, Sega and Sonic Team managed to make Nights an icon that many would recognize even to this day. The music in the game is quite serene and add to the imagination on a great and even emotional level. The main theme of Nights is also very memorable and easily one of the most recognizable tracks. Say what you will about Sega, but when it comes to music, I hold these guys in such high regard. They really know how to make you feel. Graphically, for its time, it was pretty impressive to see how the stages could expand their polygons and have nice wavy effects to the textures, making you sense like you were in some mystical wonderland where nothing made sense, and trust me, it doesn't. The PS2 version is no slouch either, enhancing all of the original material and leaving it completely intact.
Now, here's the hard part. Can I recommend Nights into Dreams out there for anybody? It's kind of a tough game to sell.
Now look, Nights is indeed a cult classic that definitely has his elitist fans. And yes, made a name for himself, and even I myself am a big supporter and fan of the character. But by today's standards, we've accomplished so much in video games that Nights, to an average person who's never played it until now, probably won't find anything captivating or special about it. Artistically, it was fine and quite an accomplishment, and graphics that for its time were an eye-pleaser with marvelous soundtrack that really brought it to life. But in the past 20 years, it's by far not the only game to pull that off. That being said, do I still think it's a game that should be tried? Oh yeah, definitely. The gameplay, while challenging in spots, can allow a player to get a sense of accomplishment when you finally do well enough to earn a good rank, and the flying elements still feel as smooth as always. And by the time you get tired of it, the game is over, and it doesn't overstay its welcome. Like any good art piece, the beauty is really in the eye of the person viewing it. While some people could potentially hate this game, there are others that will love it for its simplicity, and that may be its greatest quality. While I don't think it's aged as well as other classics, it's still a fun pleasure that I will return to play from time to time. Who knows, after this review, maybe there might be other gamers out there who might be daring enough to explore this game and try it out for themselves.
As of late, guys, the game is actually pretty cheap and easy to get your hands on. But here's the thing. If you guys don't have a Sega Saturn analog controller and you don't feel like purchasing a Sega Saturn if you don't already have one, and you don't feel like getting the PlayStation 2 remake imported, fret not. If you have Steam, which I know a lot of you do, you can get the game on there, you can get it on Xbox Live, or even the PlayStation Network. And honestly, I sense no reason or harm in giving an old game like this another shot. You might be able to even see something special for yourself in it, which I highly encourage to explore. Yeah, well, you guys, time has really gotten away from me. I mean, I did want to accomplish a whole lot more at the beginning of this year, get a whole bunch more videos out, but being sick really took a lot out of me, and I still really want to explore the sequel, Knight's Journey of Dreams. However, again, because time being so short, I'm going to have to take a slight detour away from the Knight's reviews and get started working on other videos that I really want to do, because we got things coming out that I want to take advantage of, and I think you guys might like it too. But if you guys out there want me to review the game faster, but you could always leave comments to encourage me to do so. Meanwhile, guys, thank you for watching, and I'm fading!